Well, hello people. Happy Sunday. It's Sunday over here in Portugal. We had Liberation Day holiday last week on Thursday, which was fun. I went over and talked with a friend of mine from Australia who's visiting. I might put that up. I don't know. We were just blah, blah.
You got to start with the people. I mean, they're the first people the first thing you got to talk about. I mean, I think it's come from their Catholic kind of background, you know. I mean, I know in a lot of places in the world, Catholics have all moved forward and, it's not this, important to look after the family or anything anymore. But here, they're more traditional. They love one another. Sunday's always family day. They take the kids here. They do everything. But all that then reflects on to everybody else. You walk down the street and you've got total strangers walking. Good day, good morning, good day, what can I do to help you? I mean, they're really nice people. I've heard of people having trouble in government departments and things like that, but I mean, we haven't struck anything real bad or nothing that would, and nothing that's going to change their mind.
Right.
But the people, you can't say enough for them.
That obviously the military's been here in secret because they do have Burger Kings. So it's like, not just in Baghdad back in the day, but here too. So you guys, you'll fit right in if you're an American. You don't have to worry.
At one stage in the time I've been here, I actually saw a McDonald's.
But I wanted to do a quick check-in and mention some articles I've been reading recently. There's so much going on in the world, and it's hard to know what people pay attention to, but obviously people have noticed the student protests on campuses around the world, and in particular in the United States. It's a real thing. People are sick of it. It's going to have an impact on the US elections one way or another. Either people won't vote or something. But, the idea that America doesn't run Israel is a joke because the US has a lot of power. And the US government and the commander-in-chief could do a lot of things to de-escalate or bring about changes in what's going on in these wars. People talk about Israel lobby running the United States. I doubt that. But we do know that candidates like Joe Biden throughout their career have accepted a great deal of money from the quote-unquote Israel lobby. That's a thing. People have donors, they have big donors, and they matter. I'm just going to go through a few things and put links in the description of this video and read from my laptop here instead of the way I usually do it. Try to get through it really quick. Anyway, I read this piece a while ago called Cthulhu Gazes Right by Isaac Simpson, Dark Futura, part of that clique of writers. And he goes through, he's somebody who understands the PR and advertising business like I do. And he understands propaganda. He quotes Bernays and other people in his article. And it's a pretty good piece when it comes to explaining what propaganda is in the context of the overall business ecosystem, I guess you could call it, or just the tapestry of making money and how profitable celebrities are in propaganda campaigns and sports stars, and how he talks about the Super Bowl thing and these Pepsi, what was it, Bud Light and all that kind of stuff. And kind of the absurdity of it. He gets us Jesus ads and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. It's really worth looking at. But one takeaway I got when I got to the end of it was he was suggesting that if the right, whatever he means by that, wants to win against the left, whatever he means by that. And it's an ever sliding scale, and we can look at history and talk about Nazism and fascism and left-wing revolutions, you know, the Reds here and there, and Stalinism and, you know, Maoism and everything. That's, if you're interested in that kind of history, go check it out. But he's basically saying it behooves people to understand how propaganda really works and how to use it if you're going to get the people on your side. I just think that's where we are in the world, right? We're still using sophistry and rhetoric and trickery and emotional hijack and whatnot to manipulate people into taking our side, rather than having a stoical, honest, philosophical conversation about issues and the truth, whatever that is. Obviously, we just don't do that anymore. And most of our leaders now are just LARPers. You know, they don't even know what they're talking about half the time. Patrick Lawrence put up a bunch of very good stuff, so I encourage you to read him. I'm going back quite a ways. Yeah, Indica, it's spelled INDI.ca. He's a writer who has his own platform and website, and I really appreciate his work, so I'll put a few articles in there about what he's been writing about and encourage you to go have a look at it. He's very anti-white empire, and I think he means that more metaphorically and in terms of Western European colonialism throughout the centuries, as opposed to a racial thing. There is this north-south divide in the world, wealthy countries versus countries that are developing. I don't know what the correct language is now to talk about all that, but colonialism is a thing, neocolonialism is a thing, and we're still in that game of struggling to control resources, to control power, and we're not in the partnership business. We're still in the rivalrous great game business. So he's very interesting to look into those kinds of things. A couple of things from Responsible Statecraft, a bunch of PDFs. Chris Hedges' articles, Requiem for the New York Times, that was a good one. He's talking about The Economist, the New York Times, magazines like that are practically run by interns now, right? And everybody's firing staff, and we all have to go to Substack and other platforms and subscribe to each individual journalist or voice that we want to learn from or read. So rather than buying the New York Times or subscribing to that and having a bunch of decent contributors there to read, we're forced to subscribe to dozens of independent journalists nowadays. He doesn't write about that, but you know, he takes down the New York Times. And so, yeah, Indica, for example, talks a lot about the collapse of empire, the waning power of the United States and whatnot. You may not like that kind of narrative, but it's interesting to look at it, especially if you care about it. And you'll start to notice that people in the status quo, people with power, are extremely concerned about apologizing for whatever foibles and failures the West has been responsible for over the decades. Therefore, you have people like Steven Pinker, who has to write, you know, Enlightenment apologetics and reason apologetics and so on and so forth. Because, hey, look, it's not that bad. If there's any problems in the world, it doesn't matter. The moral arc, the end of history. Francis Fukuyama, we won. You know, people of a certain generation coming from a weird country who are privileged and lucky get to tell you everything's okay, so just shut up. And meanwhile, we have people talking about the singularity and quantum jumping and all kinds of bizarre things. And we still are accelerationists, just moving forward as quickly as we can towards the future without really digesting and criticizing and understanding and interrogating the consequences and the externalities and so on. Tom Dispatch is another one I like. This article, Dead on Arrival. Again, I'll put all these in my description. They're at Globe Hacker's Facebook page, so you can always find them there, or at minds.com with Boolean T, my nickname. You can find these posted on a daily basis. So a couple articles about the Iran breach and what that means, the tit for tat between Israel and Iran and Hamas and whatnot. More stuff about Ukraine, of course. Another one that kind of bugged me a little bit is hand-waving freakoutery, the guy from Substack with that handle. He's a pro-gun guy, and basically his idea of the future is if you're smart, you're making money and building your bunker and hiring your platoons of robotic dogs with flamethrowers and private security forces and buying up all the ammo you can to be the last man standing after an AI apocalypse or whatever. So you have that, Thucydides' trap. Everybody needs to go all out on AI because the first people who really crack it are going to have all the power. And it is true that all the old methods of propagandizing and persuading and manipulating and brainwashing people, we have tools now on steroids, which is an understatement, to manipulate your brain and attention and so on. So yeah, you want to be the last man standing, that billionaire died before you, therefore you win, something like that. I think that's ridiculous because we have more choices and possibilities and potential and capabilities than just that kind of a zero-sum game. But we live in a world of monopolists and extreme corporate power, capitalism gone wild. And the end of that game is utter destruction. It's just Blade Runner type stuff, as far as I'm concerned. We could have an imagination come up with some other way of doing things, but we'd have to coordinate our efforts across nation states and cultures and work together in partnership to bring these things about. Sounds like a global communist revolution. Nobody ever liked that. Nothing much has changed since the lead up to World War II. The lead up to World War III is based on the same kind of othering, scapegoating, fear of communism, fear of Islamists, all that kind of stuff. Russia, Donald Trump, to divide and conquer, to maintain power, to have more control. So yeah, Mullock says to build the AI hand-waving freakoutery. So that's an interesting article to look at. I don't really agree with him, but he's interesting. It's been going on for quite a while, and we're losing the ability to just maintain our machines. So we spend billions of dollars designing and building these complex machines like the F-35, and then we don't think about the long-term maintenance of these things or the cost when you do have a total war and these billion-dollar machines are getting blown up left and right by little drones and whatnot. Yeah, a lot of science stuff. And then Simplicious76, who does very deep dives on what's going on in Ukraine and other conflicts, he always includes a lot of references and screenshots and links and tweets and stuff from all kinds of sources, including mainstream sources like Reuters and also sources around the world like RT that most of us would never look at because it's Russian. It's got to be satanic. Even CNN, the New York Times. So all of the stuff that he's looking into is geolocated and referenced, so everything he talks about. And it gives you a much better impression of what's going on in the war in Ukraine, the Russo-Ukrainian war. And if you're just learning about this from TV or mainstream media, you don't know anything. Not to mention haven't read any books that kind of ground you in the context and history of the region, which most of us haven't read any books on that. But I'm just saying, people have. There are people who know what they're talking about. And if you really want to be well informed, you're going to have to dip into this, even if it goes against your biases or your kind of emotional attachments and so on. I keep saying that over and over again. I can't help it. So Indica, again, the remarkable rise of anti-Semitism. This is a good one, dealing with all the fear-mongering over people begging to differ with what's going on in Gaza and, getting all scared and freaked out about it. I don't feel safe. Your feelings don't matter when tens of thousands of people are being murdered. Another good one was the New Atlantis article by Thomas Fuchs, who's a very interesting scholar from Germany. And it's Narcissistic Depressive Technoscience, the New Atlantis. Well, these are scientists and psychologists and so on, but they're coming at it from a Christian perspective and not just a cultural Christian thing. But these are Christian scientists who actually are scientists and Christians. Yeah, you can walk and chew gum. You can have a spiritual feeling and tradition and still be like rigorous in your data and research and science and so on. And it's a very interesting article. It's about mental health and homelessness. So what's really behind homelessness? Is it just that we don't want to put people suffering from mental health issues in a hospital anymore because God knows we can't afford it? We have to give money to Israel and Ukraine and whatever. So how could we afford to take care of mentally ill people? And so they're all out on the street, or drug addicts. Can't afford to help those people or house them. What's really behind it? And of course, capitalism has something to do with it. And of course, everybody has to say, if you have a nuanced view on capitalism, that, oh, I'm not anti-capitalism. Look at all the wonderful things it's done. I love my Lumix camera. But yeah, if you look at it systemically and in terms of all of its institutions and what it's come up with over the years, the good parts and the bad parts, including the violence, including climate issues and externalities that are really bad for the future. I had another article about demographics too, about the falling birth rates everywhere in the world. And we have a demographic problem. Okay, birth rates are going down everywhere, and it's not because of the brown people. It's not because of the Muslims, okay? It's not a great replacement. It's just people got wealthy, they got birth control and other things, many complex reasons, and they stopped having so many babies, Go forth and multiply. God wants you to have lots of children. Sister wives, sister wives, sister wives, like this kind of thing. Baby, baby, baby. And regardless of what happens with climate change and nuclear war and so on, we're just not having that many babies. And the population is going to go down eventually. And no, Africans aren't going to take over the world because of that. There's lots of issues affecting their birth rate, and theirs is going to go down in the future as well. And is that a good or a bad thing? And what does that mean? So anyway, these are really interesting articles. I'd recommend you read them. I'll put them in a list, and I'll talk to you again soon. William T. out.